Boa noite, senhor Ferguson. Boa noite, amigos e amigas do Fronteiras do Pensamento. Meu nome é Dado Abreu e sou editor da Revista Poder. Um prazer participar dessa conferência. Minha pergunta é relacionada ao Doom, seu mais recente livro. Uma das análises apresentadas no livro é a de que não somos bons como seres humanos para lidar com tragédias, para lidar com catástrofes. Sobre isso, por que nós alcançamos tantos avanços na ciência, como desenvolver vacinas em tempo recorde, por exemplo, mas não conseguimos evoluir enquanto sociedade? O que impede que nosso crescimento socioemocional seja compatível ao nosso desenvolvimento científico?
That's a great question, and I think there are two answers to it. There's no question that our scientific knowledge is without precedent in human history. We were able to understand the genetic structure of the SARS-CoV-2 virus within days of its identification. The basic design of the mRNA vaccines took a relatively short time. What stood in the way of a more effective response to this virus that we understood quite well and were able to devise a vaccine against? Number one, the rise of magical thinking online, which I've already talked about, but let me restate the point. You can have the most sophisticated scientific establishment around the world, professors, researchers, people with PhDs conducting work in multiple disciplines from virology all the way through to network science. If the population remains scientifically illiterate and susceptible to magical thinking and conspiracy theories, then all your scientific advances will fall at the fence of public acceptance. And that is why the vaccines, which have high efficacy and very low risk, have nevertheless been rejected by at least a fifth of adult Americans. It's an astonishing state of affairs. The second answer to your question is a slightly different one, namely that the bureaucratic structures that have proliferated in most countries since around the 1970s that have caused government to become much larger, to have a great many more agencies and employees. These bureaucratic structures seem to be getting worse over time at crisis management. And we can see that not just by looking at 2020, but going back and looking at 2007. In 2007, it was fairly obvious to anybody paying attention that the US mortgage market was out of control and that most of the major banks of the world were wildly undercapitalized. And yet, the many regulatory agencies that existed to deal with precisely those problems failed utterly and only really woke up when Lehman Brothers failed and a massive global bank run unfolded. And I could go on because as you go back in time, you realize that there have been crises upon crises that we've managed poorly, whether it's Hurricane Katrina or 9/11. You name it, we can see a fundamental failure of what I like to call the administrative state, because I think the phrase deep state is too conspiratorial. The administrative state is extremely good at producing 36-page plans for disaster. Pandemic preparedness plan, I've no doubt that the cyber warfare preparedness plan, and these plans look like they are solutions to the problem of preparedness, but in fact they aren't, and they disintegrate on contact with a real crisis. So I think the combination of magical thinking on the internet, which pollutes people's minds and confuses the public, and bureaucratic inertia, this combination explains why our vast scientific knowledge cannot be translated into more effective responses to disasters as they strike.